Okay, so let me just give a quick recap of the data model and SU types. So at least since we all are connected now, so let's have some theory thing so that next week it will be easy when we do that in the system hands-on. Okay, so basically in MDG, so let's say for example, this is your MDG system. So when I say MDG system, on the you have that ECC S4 layer, you'll be having it. Okay, on top of that SAP ECC version or S4 system, we will be activating the MDG related business functions. So when you activate MDG business functions, you can say this is your MDG system. This whole system is for MDG where you create a master data. Now, when you activate this MDG business functions, the first and foremost concept that we have is a staging area in MDG, right? So this particular staging area will get created. So staging area is nothing but it's a bunch of SAP tables. Okay, so these tables will be also available for every object. Like you will have some set of staging tables for material master, for business partners, for customer master, for vendor master. For every object, you will have some set of these kind of staging tables will be created in the system. Okay, so now uh, uh, we already have our application specific tables. So these are like your when you create a material master, the material master related tables are MARA, then MARC, then you have MBEW. So likewise, you have the actual application master specific tables here. So the idea here is once user log into MDG system, he will create a master data. This data initially gets stored into your staging tables. From the staging tables, once all the approvals process is completed, this particular data, the record that is there in your staging table, that record will be moved to your application specific tables. So these are the actual tables which stores your master data. And the records that are in this particular table will be, these records will be, we call it as active records. These are the active records which we can use it for your transactional purpose, like in sales orders, purchase orders, or anything. And these records, we call it as inactive records. Okay, so now this is the process. So this kind of staging tables, we deal with a topic called data model in MDG. Okay, so now in MDG, so these staging tables, whatever the staging tables that we have in MDG layer, so these staging tables we don't create manually by going into that S11 and everything. So these tables will be created by MDG framework. How MDG framework create these tables? So in MDG, we have something called a data model configuration. So what we will do is at the high level, we created data models. So data model represents one master data. Okay, that means for material master, you will have one data model. The name of the data model for material master is MM. Similarly, for business partner, SAP created one data model. For finance related objects, there is one data model. For article master, there is one data model. For your plant or else plant maintenance module, we have like equipments, functional locations. So for those things, there is a data model called U1. So these are the out-of-box data models that are already available from SAP, right? So we don't create any these data models. When you are working on material master, already this data model is available. This data model represents the staging tables. But group of staging tables, we call it as one data model. So for material master, already the staging tables are available. For business partner, for all these objects, the data models are available. Okay, so now data model represents master data. So if at all you wanted, let's say for example, you can also create your custom objects as well. That means custom data models also we can create in MDG. Okay, so now what this data model contains. So this particular data model, okay, so a data model will be there at the top level. Under the data model, let's say the name will be MM, or probably we created one data model Y1, I believe, last session. So the name of the data model is Y1. So when you are creating a data model, you will have a data model. Under data model, we can create entities, entity 1, okay, and then you can also create like you will have multiple entities, entity 2, entity 3. Likewise, you can have some group of a bunch of entities, entity 3 like this. Okay, so data model is nothing but collection of entities. each entity will have in turn, it will have attributes, attribute 1, attribute 2, attribute 3, likewise. Okay, so now normally on the ECC side, we have the tables, like Mara is our table. Okay, so this is a table name. Okay, now this particular table, we can assume it as one entity in MDG side. Like how in a table you will have the table fields, right? Like material number, then you have material type, then you have material group, then material industry sector. So likewise, what you will have group of attributes in a table, right? So similarly, you can assume this is equivalent to your table, and these are the attributes inside a table. Similarly, for another entity also, you will have some attributes. For all these entities, you will have attributes. Now, data model is nothing but collection of entities. Entity is nothing but collection of attributes. Okay. And now when you create like this, and if you have more than one entity in a data model, in this data model, we have how many? 1, 2, 3 entities are there. You need to define the relation between these entities, which is parent, which is child. So you need to define some relationships between these entities. Now, once all this configuration is done, finally, when you activate your data model, that is the time system will generate the staging tables in MDG layer. Okay, so the staging tables will be created. So in MDG, we don't create directly the tables. You always configure the data models and the data model entities attributes. And once your changes are done, when you activate directly your data model, those changes will get reflected in your staging table. Initially, corresponding to this entity 1, this is my staging table. Under the staging table, I have attribute 1, attribute 2, attribute 3. That means these 3 attributes. Now, business said that, hey, I need one more attribute in my, we wanted to govern. Then ultimately you need one more attribute over here. So what you will do, you don't go to this table and extend it. Instead of that one, you open the corresponding entity and add a new attribute over here, attribute 4, and then activate your data model. So any change you do, finally you need to do an activation. Then what happens, automatically these changes will get reflected in your corresponding staging table. So that's how your data model works. Okay. Any questions till now? Okay. If no questions, so what we have done is in the last session, we created one data model. We wanted to first, because already material master data model is already available. Under this material master, there are around 100 plus entities are there. Under each entity, attributes are there, the relationships are already defined. So data model is already there, fully it's available. Okay, so this data model completely represents the bunch of tables on application side, like Mara, Marcy. These are the application specific tables where your actual master data gets stored for material master. Okay, then MBEW, MAKT. You can Google it, all the material master tables. I'm just listing few. Okay. So then you have something called MLON. So likewise, these are the bunch of application tables. Now corresponding to these tables, so you will find like entity 1, entity 2, or entity 3, entity 4. Likewise, you will find some bunch of tables under data model. So this entire thing is already there. So there is no, when you are working on in any MDG project like for material master, there is no need to create this data model from scratch because SAP already provided. That is what we call it as a out of box. So this solution is available. Okay. So what at max we do is, let's say for example, under material master Mara table, business have some custom attributes. Let's say for example, some 10 to 15 custom attributes are there. So this Mara table, we extended the Mara table to include the Z attributes. Now, those Z attributes are not the standard attributes. So on MDG side also, if at all you wanted to govern those 10 or 15, whatever the custom attributes that you have, you need to you need to first locate these attributes. Let's say I added those Z attributes under my Mara table, Z1, Z2, Z3. Okay. Now I need to look at what is the corresponding to Mara table, what is the entity in So first, let's say you located, this is my corresponding entity. Then there you need to add your Z1, Z2, Z3. You need to enhance your entity with custom attributes. And then finally activate your data model. So the corresponding staging table that is already available, those staging table definition will get adjusted with the new attributes like Z1, Z2, Z3, likewise. So that means basically here we are not creating from scratch, but we are extending your data model with custom attribution. So this is what we do. Okay. So, but if at all you wanted to learn the complete data model, what are the concepts are there, right? So that's where we go with a custom data model. Okay, custom data model. So in what cases in real time in the projects, I need to create a custom data model. Okay.
So we are actually extending the Mara table into our data model, and then maybe it is corresponding to E1 entity, and then we are adding these Z1, Z2, the Z attributes.
Yes.
Is it possible, when you are in the development stage, can we do this? Although you have made one-to-one, whatever the correspondence with E1 or the entity one, can we add the custom attributes in the E1 and then that can be transferred over back to Mara? Is it something that is a
No,
normal practice
no,
or is it
no, no.
the other way
So,
around? Yeah.
no. So both are separate activities. Okay, let me show you that in a visual. Let me show you here. So this is your MDG layer. This is your ECC layer. Okay, so you have your Mara table here, right? In the Mara table, you have attribute 1, attribute 2 standard attributes. Okay.
Yeah.
So the corresponding to Mara table in MDG side, you have this is the staging table. Here also you have A1, A2 are the standard attributes. Now, when this extension starts basically, okay, so business says that, okay, when I'm creating any material in the system, I wanted to maintain the product, let's say category. Product category is one of the custom field. I mean, they say that product category is one of the field that we use for my purchase orders or sales orders, right? So in that case, when creating a material, I should be able to capture a product category. So we don't have any field in the standard for the product category. Then ultimately, actually, this is your transactional system. See, this is your transactional system, basically. So in the transactional system also, you have your Mara table, right? So here also you have A1, A2. So now if you look at this one, in your transactional table system also you have Mara table. In MDG also under the ECC layer you have Mara table. And in MDG also you have corresponding staging table. Now all these three are in sync, right? So now business requirement always starts from here. Business will say, hey, while creating that sales orders or purchase orders, for every material that user entered, I need to know the product category. Accordingly, my taxation or something I need to define. Then business need that Z attribute basically here, the product category. Okay. So on this table, on this transactional system, either MDG technical people will enhance, or else if you have any ABAP developers on this transactional system, they will enhance this with Z1. But what is the source for this Z1? This Z1 is not maintaining in MDG in this transactional system. The source for this one should be here. So now it's up to the MDG team responsibility to enhance this particular ECC Mara table with the Z1 field. Then only this data will go and sit into this one at the time of replication. Now, what is the source for this Z1? The source for this Z1 is this one. Because this is the place, this is my UI. In the UI, user will input A1, A2, and also he need to input the Z1. So user will input this data. When user input this data, then this will go and sit into here. From here, it will go and sit into this particular one. And from here, it will go to your transactional system. So whatever the changes that we are doing in MDG system, that means this is one side and this is the second one. Okay. Of course, on the UI also, we need to add that field. So these are the 1, 2, 3 activities we have to perform. So we have to do it individually. In ECC, this activity 1 has to be performed separately. And after that, in MDG layer, of course, we cannot directly change the staging table. So you need to add this field in your data model entity level and activate your data model. So this staging table will get adjusted with this Z1 attribute. After that, you need to enhance your UI application to include this Z field.
Okay. So the first change will happen in the ECC Mara
Yes.
table,
Yes.
and that can be either directly connected to the our entity in the MDG, which can bring the Z as well if you are already included in. So
Yep.
then we can only have to adjust the UI to include that new
Yes.
attribute. That's fine.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank
Okay.
you.
So yeah, fine. So now, so then coming back to custom data model. So we took one scenario, the custom data model scenario. Why? Because already MMBP, it has already the entities, and only we need to learn in the standard data model only how to extend, how to include a custom attribute in the existing entity, or how to create a new entity in the existing data model, those things. Okay. So, but if at all you wanted to learn from scratch how to create a custom data model. So first scenario is in what cases I need to create a custom data model. So when you talk about, like, let's say, for example, plant master, or else WBS element, or else maybe employee master. Okay. So in standard MDG provides a solution for your material master, BP, customer, vendor, finance objects, then article master, and EM objects. Only for these objects, only the solutions are available. Other than this one, any master data which you think that we wanted to govern using MDG, just like how we are governing MMBP, so that comes under custom data model. So SAP MDG framework supports two things. One is working on the standard data models plus enhancing the standard data model to handle some of the customer requirements.
Hey, ZaranTech now offers SAP corporate training? That's right. Train your workforce in SAP with our comprehensive program. We offer customized courses, certified trainers, and hands-on labs for both individuals and businesses. Our standout features? Bespoke training, fully configured servers for practice, in-house materials, and a dedicated LMS. Plus, get session recordings and 24/7 support. From functional to technical modules, we have got it all. Choose ZaranTech for SAP training and watch your team excel. Learn, upskill, succeed with ZaranTech.
The second part is create, you can, whatever is not available in the standard, right? Then you can also, the framework supports to create a custom data model. Custom data model means, let's say, usually how we create a plant, you go to SPRO and we create a plant. WBS, with respect to transaction codes, we have to create that master data. Now, what we do, we create a data model in MDG so that the staging area will be available. And we also create a UI applications for this master data. And then we define the workflows for this one, so that, and it also supports your validations, rules, and everything. And we need to build a replication as well. So everything we have to build from scratch for custom data model, but the framework supports, right? So that's where actually we, in some of the project implementations, in addition to the standard objects, sometimes out of 10 implementations, 2 to 3 times we actually go with some custom data model. If business requirement as part of the business, if some of the object which is not part of the standard one, we may have to create a custom data model. So if you know how to create from scratch a custom data model, then it will be easy for you to enhance the standard data models as well. So that's why in the last session, we created one custom data model. Okay, so we created one custom data model called Y1. This is the name of the data model. Okay, so when you create a data model, we also specify one of the important parameter at the data model level, whether it is flex or reuse. So this also we discussed what is a flex or what is a reuse mode. So reuse mode means, let's say this is your MDG system. So you have your staging table and you have your active area table, nothing but your application specific tables. Initially, when user log into MDG and he create a record, that record gets stored into your staging table. After all the workflow approvals, finally the record will be moved from staging table to your application specific tables, or we call this as the active area. Okay, so this kind of approach, we call it as a reuse mode. Okay, reuse mode means, after, in case of reuse mode, once the record gets activated, that means after all the approvals, the data will be moved from staging table to active area table, and the record that is already there in staging table will be deleted from here. It will get deleted. Okay, so always active records will be there here, and inactive records will be in your staging table. So this kind of technique, we call it as the reuse mode. Flex mode means basically what happens is, this is your MDG layer, and you have your staging and application active area tables. So initially, record will be created in your staging table, and after all the approvals, the same inactive record will become active, and the active record will stay in your staging table only. It won't move to your underlying or down in the active area table, right? So this kind of thing, we call it as a flex mode. So flex or reuse mode decides, based on where your active record stays. If you, after workflow, if your active record is stays in your application specific tables, then this call it as a reuse mode. If that after activation also, if your active record gets stored into your staging table, then we call it as a flex mode. Okay, so all your BP and article master, EAM objects, all these objects are built using reuse mode. That means after activation, when you create a material or business partner, customer, vendor, article master, anything, when you create and once the record gets activated, so inactive record will turn into active record, and active record will be moved to your active area table. So this uses reuse mode. Okay, only finance object, the name of the data model is OG. Only finance objects are built using flex mode. That means after activation, the record will be active record, inactive record will turn into active, and active record also stays in flex staging table, and it won't move to your underlying application specific table. Okay, if at all you wanted to move to this particular application specific table, you need to configure an additional replication, self-replication, we call it as a. So you need to configure self-replication, just like how your data is replicating to the external systems. The same way, system will also keep a copy, move a copy into your application specific tables. Okay, so this also we discussed flex versus reuse mode. Okay, so just to give you a high level overview, right? So what happens is in MDG, generally, let's say this is your MDG system. So this is your MDG layer, and this is your ECC. So you have your staging table, and you have your application specific table. This is, let's say, I'm taking example of Mara table, and this is a staging table for Mara. Okay, so now what happens? User log into the system, and he opened the material master UI. He entered all the data, and finally he clicked the submit button. So then this record initially gets stored into your staging table. Okay, so the record number is, let's say, 100 is my material number. Now what happens? It will trigger a workflow, and it will go for approval process and everything. Once the final approver approves, so then ultimately you need this particular data in your transactional system. In the transactional system, you need this material, 100 material number. But so once approver approves, then what happens? This record it will move from your MDG staging table to your actual Mara table. Okay, and
it will be removed from staging table.
Staging table, yes, it will be removed from staging table.
So there is no record to be available in staging table then.
Yeah. So
actually, once the record has been moved to ECC Mara table activation, yes, then the staging there will be no record available.
That record will be deleted.
Okay.
Okay, and now your record is here. So what happens once your CR is approved and that record is moved over here? Ultimately, this is your MDG system, but you need this 100 material number in your transactional system, where the sales are purchasing or any orders are getting created, right? So then what happens? Automatically, there is a replication process that we configure. So we call it as a data replication framework. So via this replication framework, the record will be moved to your target system.
Okay.
Okay, now in this process, what happens? The inactive record will, when after all the approvals, inactive record will become active. That means, what is inactive? Inactive means you cannot use that record for any transactional purpose, because this record is still in the process of setting up. So it has to go through all the approvals, and then finally it has to be approved. Then only this inactive record will turn into active record. Active record can be used for your transactional purpose. So as long as this record is inactive, it stays in your staging table. And once the record gets activated, so it will get deleted from staging table, and it will move to your active area table. right?
Yeah.
So this kind of setup, we call it as a reuse. Why we are calling it as a reuse? Because your Mara table, whatever these application specific tables are, right? So we are using these tables to store your active records. We are not actually creating any new set of tables. Whatever your application specific tables are already there as part of, these are the SAP standard tables. Already these kind of tables are available, like Mara, Marcy, all these tables. So we are reusing these tables to store your active records. So that's why we call it as a reuse mode.
Yeah, understood.
Okay. Similarly, what is the difference? It is just opposite. Flex means what happens? Your inactive record is there in staging, but after activation, instead of moving, it won't move to your underlying applications tables. Instead of that one, the same inactive record will turn into active, and the active record stays in your same staging table.
Okay.
Okay. So your replication happens from here to your target system in case of flex mode. Because
in flex mode, we will not store in Mara, Marcy like standard.
so yeah, so now we don't store that one, but if at all you need the data into your underlying this kind of application specific tables, this is your data replication framework, right? So you need to configure another additional DRF from here to here. A separate replication you need to configure. So that we will discuss how to bring the data into your application specific tables, that we will discuss later. Okay, so now which data model, which master data uses this flex mode? Only finance objects. Finance means the name of the data model is OG. Only finance objects follows this flex mode approach. That means your cost centers, profit center, GL account, or else whatever company code, whatever under finance you have the objects, all the objects are designed in such a way that it always follows a flex approach, flex mode. Why SAP designed separately this one? That just go through that last session, we discussed some why SAP designed this one. But finance always follows flex mode. You cannot convert that into reuse mode. Similarly, your BP, then article master or EAM objects, right? So these objects are all already designed using reuse technique. You cannot convert this into a flex mode. So these are the out of objects, and SAP, while creating a data model, while designing the solution for these objects in MDG, they decided that all these objects will follow reuse technique, finance object will follow flex technique. So it has its own reasons. So to know why SAP has done this kind of thing, but so just go through the last session, there we discussed. Okay. Now,
okay, actually. Yeah.
for the standard objects, this is the situation. SAP already decided and it followed this approach. We cannot change it. Never ever try to convert into flex or OG into reuse. Okay, but now when you're creating a custom objects like plant master or employee master or else any WBS element or anything that you think which is not part of this master data list, that when you are creating from scratch, just like we in the last session, we created one data model called Y1. We just created it. Okay, we are yet to complete the complete configuration. So when we create a data model, it's up to you whether you decide this data model should follow flex or reuse. It's up to you which approach you wanted to choose. Okay, so for that one, there is a field over here in the system. When you're creating a data model, you have a field called, there is a field over here. So there you need to reuse area. The field name is reuse area. Okay, so in the system, once we log into the system, I'll show you. Last session also we discussed about this one. I'm just refreshing your knowledge. Okay, so there, when you create a data model, at the data model level, there is a setting called reuse area. Okay, so if you leave it blank, or else if you say it's the value MDG is a predefined hard-coded text, if you maintain the value as MDG, or if you leave it as a blank, then in this case, this data model, this particular data model will be flex data model. Other than these two things, if you enter some text over here, so let's say for example Y1. Now here in case of reuse, you entered, let's say for example, Y product, something like that. If at all you need to decide it as a reuse mode technique, what happens is you need to create this kind of reuse area. So I showed you in the last session how to create, and this one you need to assign it to technically to some ABAP class technically. Okay, so when you assign this one, that we will call it as a reuse mode technique. So why, when you assign an ABAP class, we call it as a reuse technique? Because if you look at this particular diagram, when I say reuse mode, that means at the time of activation, your inactive record will be deleted from here, and it will get created in your application specific table. That means who will do this activity for us? From the user point of view, user will approve. Our approver or final approver will click on approve button. Then automatically this activation process get initiated and the data will be moved to your underlying table. So there is some logic associated in the backend. There is some program logic. That program logic will take care of deleting this record and moving this record into your application specific tables. Okay, so that logic has been hard coded inside this ABAP class. It won't though for you it looks like it's automatically happening, but in the backend the logic will get executed to move your data from staging to your active area. So this ABAP class basically acts as this class, we call it as an access class. Okay, so now what is the significance or importance of this? If at all you wanted to design any data model with reuse mode, then you need to define this class, or basically the MDG technical team has to develop this kind of class. This class, not only it will move the data from staging to active area, it does many things. So basically this particular class acts as a bridge between, let's say for example, this is your MDG system. You have your data model here, okay, and you have your application specific tables. At the same time, you also have your SPRO configurations and all the validations and everything on your ECC side. This is your MDG layer. Now what happens? This particular, if at all you say it's a reuse, so that access class sits here in your MDG layer only. Access class. Okay, so when you activate this access class will take care of movement of this one. Or else when you are searching the data from your MDG application, so based on your input criteria, this access class will query this database, okay, and it will fetch the result and show you on the UI when you are searching for a materials. Or else when you're trying to edit the data, then these records will be loaded onto your staging tables, and it also performs authorization checks. Your access class also responsible for validating your SPRO configurations. So it does many things, whether it's your CRUD operations or else your configuration checks or validations or the standard derivations. Everything will be performed by access class. So building a data model using reuse mode technique is not so simple, because this is the core of your reuse mode technique. This access class has to be developed. It has to be built and developed with all the full-fledged functionalities. Okay, so it's not it has a lot of effort. So when I said BP, article master, or SEM objects, right? So all these objects are built using reuse technique. That means each object has one access class. SAP, because we are saying it's a standard object, that means has one access class, CL_mat_access, CL_mat access, some class name is there. Similarly, for BP also there is one access class. Article master also there is one access class. So for every data model, there is one access class. That access class has to be separate. You cannot use same access class for multiple data models. If one data model, one or multiple access classes. But one access class cannot be used in multiple data models. Okay, so this is one of the important.
Actually, can we not replicate the access model, the access class, to modify anything so that when we build our new custom data model, can we not use that and add our own stuff? Is it not possible?
That actually, so what you are trying to say is that, okay, you'll take the one of the existing access class, I'll copy that class into Z class
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
modify that. Okay, it won't work like that. You will get lot of errors. So instead of that, obviously you can refer that access class, how they're in the access class, the methods are like save method is there, then you have method is there, then query method is there.
Yeah.
Okay? Then validation method will be there, then derivation. These are the important methods.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can refer the standard access classes, these methods, how they are coding. Accordingly, you can write the logic in your class. So it's a better.
Okay.
Or else SAP provided one flight master access class. S flight sample data model is there. SF is the S flight
Yeah.
example, the data model. This is also built using reuse mode technique. It also has one access class, CL underscore USMD S flight or some S flight access. S flight access, the name of
Okay.
the class. Okay, it's there. Once we log into the system, I'll show you that one. So it has actually limited entities. It will be easy to understand, follow how to build an access class.
Okay.
But that will be done by technical team, not functional.
Technical team, not functional. So for the
Okay.
functional folks, what is important is basically it's good to have this knowledge. What is reuse, what is the flexing. But when it comes to that building these classes and everything, that is the MDG technical folks' responsibility.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so fine. So now when you're creating a data model, we can take a call whether we wanted to build a flex or reuse more. Okay, so because now when if at all you have to build, though you wanted to build a reuse mode, but because this access class is there and you have to code, all these things are there, right? So you can define it as a flex mode only, but there is some shortcut techniques how we can actually without bypassing access class and without writing building any access class, how we can actually handle. Basically, I wanted to handle these operations, save, read, query, validation, derivation. So those things I can alternate. There are alternative ways are there which I can handle for my custom object without having access class. So that I will tell you when we reach to the workflow topic. In the workflow topic, we can perform these activities. Okay. But as per the standard, as per the process best practices, if it is a reuse mode, you should follow this access class concept. If it is a flex mode, there is no access class, nothing.
What sets ZaranTech apart in SAP corporate training? It's our unique blend of expertise and innovation. We offer customized courses tailored to each client's needs, ensuring relevant, targeted learning. Our vast trainer database brings you wisdom from the best in the field. Need resources? Access our extensive training material repository anytime. We are all about measurable results, providing detailed student metrics to track progress. And we don't just teach, we build community. Join our thriving social media network, connecting learners beyond boundaries. With ZaranTech, you are not just training, you are transforming your SAP expertise.
Okay, so this is one of the important setting. When you create a data model, you need to specify whether it should be reuse or flex mode. So once this is done, the next one is we need to create entities. Okay, so when we created in the last one entity. So when you create an entities, you need to choose what is this particular entity type. We have SU type. When you are creating an entity type, there is a kind of setting categories there. You need to assign one of the category, SU type 1 or type 2, type 3, type 4. SU type means storage use type. Okay, storage use type. SU type, shortcut we call it as SU. So these are the 4 categories. When you are creating a brand new entity, okay, when you're creating a brand new entity, we need to specify whether this entity of type 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay, so this we will talk about later. Let's focus on type 1 and type 4. So in the last session, we created one type 1 as well. What is SU type 1 basically? So always SU type 1 indicates the parent of your master data, parent entity. Parent entity means, let's take example of material master. In material master, when you create a material, first the record get inserted always into Mara table. This is the parent table for your entire material management. After that, this is the generic or header data. Once this is done, then you can actually store the descriptions in MAKT table. These are the child tables. Or else plant information gets stored into MARCI table. Valuation information gets stored into MBEW. Then storage location related information gets stored into MLON. Okay. So then sales related information gets stored into MVKE. So likewise, there are all these are the if you have child tables. So this is your parent and these are your child tables. So without inserting the data into my Mara table, we cannot insert, the standard doesn't insert the data into these child tables. So child tables are optional. When you are creating a material in SAP using the standard T code, so child information is optional. You may or may not extend a material to plant, or you may not extend it to a valuation area, or else a storage location. So these are optional, but this is mandatory. This is a mandatory one, right? So that's why out of all these tables, so this is a Mara table is the parent and remaining all are the child tables. And material number is key in across all these entities, child entities. Similarly, you take vendor master. Vendor master. In vendor master, the parent table is LFA1. Okay, so this is the parent table. And all this is the vendor general information. Then other to store your address data, ADRC is the table, and to store your company code information, LF M1, LF M1. What is it? Purchasing order. So you have some bunch of tables. Okay, so these tables are the child tables to store your company code, to store your purchasing organization, to store your withholding tax. So these are all the child tables. Similarly, when you take up a customer master, KNA1 is the parent table, and after that you have your KNB1, KNB1, KNVV. Likewise, you have a bunch of other tables, child tables, right? So in the same way, when you are creating your corresponding to this one, you need one entity in data model. Corresponding to this one, there should be one entity. Corresponding to this one, there should be one entity. Similarly for childs also. So in the data model, when you are creating a data model, let's say data model, Y1 is our data model. First, you need to create one entity. Okay, and this entity you need to categorize it as SU type 1. Identify which entity of the you will first for sure you have to create one type 1 entity. Without a type 1 entity, you cannot activate your data model. So under this, you need to create one type 1 entity. Under this type 1 entity, you can add all your header attributes, like similar to your Mara table. All the Mara table attributes will get into this entity attributes. So in any data model, you should have one parent. Okay, so that's where actually in the last session, when we created one data model, we configured it as a flex entity, flex data model, then we created one parent entity.
We have more than one parent table in the data model, or is it just one is enough?
No. We can have. So you take example of material master. In material master, only Mara table is there. Because material master represents one material, it's a material data. So in MM data model, always you have only one SU type 1. Okay. Similarly, for BP customer vendor, you have one SU type 1. But when you take finance objects, right? In OG data model, so in what are the finance objects? We have cost center, profit center, GL account, and company code. Likewise, we have multiple masters. All these are the independent masters. So instead of creating multiple data models for each of these objects, SAP created one single data model. And under the one data model, this is one SU type 1. And this is another SU type 1. And this is another SU type 1. And this is another SU type 1. So here the takeaway point is basically under a data model, you can have more than one parent entities or more than one SU type 1. Each parent entity represents one master data. This represents cost center, this represents profit center, this represents GL account, this represents my cost center, company code.
Yeah, okay. So then custom data model can have more than one
yes.
SUT type. Yeah.
Yes. Similarly, we take example of EAM. Under EM also the data model name is U1. So this SAP created this data model. Under this data model, you have equipment, which is one master data, functional location. Then you have BOM, bill of material. Likewise, group of objects are there. So all these are independently, these are each individual master data, but all these are grouped under one single data model, U1 only. So this is one SU type 1, and this is one SU type 1. This is one SU type 1.
Okay.
Okay. So a data model, one parent entity should be there. Whether you can have one or more SU type 1s can be there. Okay. And child entities are optional. You may or may not have child entity. Okay. But if at all you have a child, here we talked about Marcy, all these are the child tables are there. So these child tables we represent with type 4, SU type 4. So SU type 1 is for your parent tables or parent entity. SU type 4 represents the child entities. That means in a data model, you can have one parent entity. Under parent entity, you can have child entity, SU type 4.
Can you tell me for vendor master how it will be?
Yeah. So for vendor master, you have like a LF A1 is the header table, vendor general data table, this one. Under this, okay, after that you have the address data gets stored into ADRC table, and then your company code data gets stored into LFM1, LF.
Actually, no. I'm asking like how we can use more than one type 1 entity. If we need to use more than one type 1 entities for vendor master.
No, for vendor master, it's always only one type 1 entity. There is no more. See, first you should have that master data, right? I mean, say, cause in case of finance, see, the point here is under a data model is a logical representation. Let's say you have cost center, profit center, GL account. All these are individual master data. Okay, I can create for this one. This is one SU type 1 because it is a one master data. This is another SU type 1. This is one master data. This is another SU type 1 master data. So I can create different data model 1, data model 2, data model 3. Okay, but unnecessarily instead of creating multiple data models, SAP what they have done is logically all these objects are under one finance, comes under finance. So they created one single data model called OG. OG is the data model. Under this data model, you can create multiple type 1s.
Understood.
Okay, but in case of vendor master, vendor master means it's a one single object. So there is no other objects under this one. Okay. In fact, if you look at this particular hierarchy, okay, if you look at this hierarchy for vendor master, customer master, for business partner, all these three objects, SAP created only one data model. BP is the data model. Okay. Now, forget about these two. Okay. So this is the BP data model hierarchy. This BP data model you have, this is your SU type 1 entity. This is the SU type 1 entity. BP header information. Under this one, you see address data gets stored. There is an entity for address data. There is an entity for the general information. There is an entity for roles, taxation, identification number, industry related information, bank data, then BP relationships. All these are the BP is the parent. These are the BP child entities. Now, how SAP included customer and vendor also in the same BP data model? There is something called multi-assignment. Okay, so this is one entity, and via this multi-assignment, they are also adding here BP custodian is for customer master, Vengen is vendor master. So this custodian is equivalent to your KNA1 table. Vengen is equivalent to here LFA1 table. Okay, so here your customer and vendor master are SU type 4s only. These are SU type 4s only. Because in MDG, you cannot create a customer or vendor directly. First, you have to create a BP. From BP, you have to create customer and vendor. That means here BP become your header. Customer and vendors are the type 4s only. Those are the childs only. Okay. Now from customer master, this is a customer. From customer master point of view, this is a header, but still this is an SU type 4 only because it is associated with your via BP multi-assignment, it associated with your BP header, which is actual SU type 1. Okay. Now here you can see from once under customer general data, you have company code data, you have customer taxation data, customer sales information, so all dunning information, all this is part of your customer master attributes. That means these are the like KNVV, KNA1, this is a KNA1 table, and this is a KNVV table is for sales. So likewise, you have the child tables. Similarly, in vendor master also, you have your company code data, then vendor sub ranges, taxation, all these info. These entities are with respect to your vendor.
So those are type 4 or attributes?
Type 4 only.
Type
Only
4.
this is the type 1. It always starts with your type 1.
Okay.
Okay, we will discuss in detail the standard BP vendor material, all these data models. But just to give you like context, right? What is a data model? Under the data model, for sure you should have one type 1 entity. And under type 1 entity, either you can have type 4s or you can have only just a type 1. And also in a data model, you can have more than one entity type. Type 1, more than one type 1 also.
I would like to know, I mean, when there are more than one SU type 1 entities, so there would be no connection in between them?
There is no connection. It's not necessary.
Not necessary.
Not necessary. Okay. So let me draw one typical data model. You have SU type 1, one entity. Under SU type 1, you can have SU type 4 and another SU type 4. Okay. So in this case, between SU type 1, type 4, and these are the type 4s, you should have a relation. So you should mention this is my SU type 4. What is the parent for this one? For this one, the parent is SU type 1. For this one also, the parent is this one, SU type 1. And this type 4 can have again further subchild, that is another SU type 4. So for this one, this is the parent. For this one, this is the parent. So that kind of relationships you need to define between entities. Okay. Now, similarly, you can also have another SU type 1. Okay. Without any childs. You can also have another SU type 1. But this SU type 1 can have SU type 4, one more child. SU type 4, one more child. Likewise. Okay. So between this is one SU, this is one master data, this is another master data, this is another master data. Between these two, these three, you don't need to define any relation because those are individual objects.
Only the advantage is?
Logically, we are putting under one data model. That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you so much.
Then vendor and customer are also different objects, right?
No, in MDG, in S4 terminology, customer and vendor master no more independent objects. Those are part of your business partner.
Okay.
Okay. So if you are not using MDG, if you are on a plain ECC system, okay, you can create using XK01 transaction code, you can create what is that vendor master. Okay, then you can also, there is a transaction code where you can also create directly a customer master. Here, there is no BP, nothing. But if you are using MDG, if you are creating customer or vendor using MDG, or else if you are on S4 system, okay, in these two cases, if at all you have to create a customer or vendor, first you have to create system, you need to do a configuration, CVI configuration, customer vendor integration. So the configuration called CVI, customer vendor integration. I'll show you what is this configuration, how to maintain. But in S4, if you're working on an S4 system, for sure, if you're working on MDG, then your customer and vendor no more individual objects. Those are part of your business partner only. That's why the data model has SU type 1 of this one. These are my SU type 4s.
Though it is SU type 4, but still it is a master data only.
Yes,
Just
yes.
like it behaves like a SU type 1.
Exactly. It behaves like once the customer got created and vendor got created. So it will be associated with a BP for sure, but still you can use it as a separate master data only.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So now all the childs you can create it as a SU type 4s. Okay. And the SU type 4 is an optional. But when you create an SU type 4 entity, for sure you need to specify what is the parent for this SU type 4, because you cannot have a child without a parent. That means you cannot, this is not a valid scenario. Let's have one data model and just create a SU type 4. Okay, and if you try to activate the data model, system will throw an error message saying that there is no parent or no SU type 1. So you cannot have a child without a parent in a data model. For sure, you have to create SU type 1. This is a valid scenario. And this is again a valid scenario. And this is also again a valid scenario.